You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back to another episode of Trending Fantasy. I'm John Bauer. Find me on X at the Bauer Club. You know I'm joined by Mitch Sorensen. That's at DynoMC. Mitch, we are in the middle of rookie drafts right now. And something I wanted to look at was kind of like a 1 year look ahead. And we're sitting here on May 5th, May 10th, whatever date this episode comes out and hits the airwaves. And we're looking at our rookie rankings, we're looking at our tiers, and the way these guys are valued today. But we wanted to look at it from the positive end. Next week, we'll talk about some of the negatives. But overall, what are the factors for you that can lead to a rookie value increase? You know, whether it's throughout the offseason, whether it's, whenever the actual season comes around.
Yeah, I'll let you hit on the production efficiency stuff, but so much is likability. Just people I think people like Travis Hunter, the football player at Colorado, but I don't think the Dynasty community really fell in love with Travis Hunter till they started learning more about him. Like, the dude loves to play football and he loves to fish. And that's all he loves to do. And it's like, he seems just like a really cool dude that everybody would want to go hang out with. And I think that really matters for Dynasty. I mean, there's something likable there to where you're like, you know what? I want him on my team because I want him to succeed. To where, tell yourself a story for Matthew Golden. Maybe he loves to do the same thing, but he wasn't as high of a profile guy, so we don't know as much. So I don't feel that need to be like, oh, you know what? Matthew Golden, he seems like the same guy. I want to go out. Just that story isn't there, right? But it is so important for Dynasty. Everything that we care about is how the rest of the teams in your league care about a player. Doesn't matter how I care about him. Doesn't matter how John cares about him. It's what the league mates and the whole Dynasty community feels. So if you go out and you get a Rashee Rice, half the people in your league don't want to roster him. Just flat out won't do it. So you want to get guys who are super likable and ones that people just like. Like, it's extremely important, in my opinion.
You could call it likability. You could call it, insulated value. Mm-hmm. Whatever we can do when we look at these players, these prospects, that expands the interest in that player. You mentioned it, Travis Hunter, kind of a higher value prospect. Matthew Golden, he goes in the first round of the NFL draft, but the Dynasty community, he's a fairly divisive player. So a higher baseline coming in too. And that goes into pre-draft bias. The other factors, I think, production, obviously. If you produce as a rookie, you're going to see a value increase. Yes. It's common sense. But even if you're not the most productive, I think if you are efficient with minimal opportunity, so you can look at yards per route run, you can look at yards after contact per carry, anything that is not raw counting stats wise, it's more of a per touch basis. That carries weight for a lot of people because then, hey, can we project them for a larger role moving forward? And if so, well, their efficiency was so high. But then it gets a little tricky because whenever you expand the role, the efficiency for the most part tends to come down. So you kind of got to walk that fine line.
But people really don't seem to care about that part of it, which is what this whole episode plays into. Like Isaiah Likely, we all know he produces really a high efficient rate, but like, we don't know how it's going to go as soon as he does take on a full-time role. But people buy into that. Chigakonkwo was another one That's
a great one.
His stats, like his efficiency stats, were unreal. As soon as he got the full-time role, of course, he wasn't able to keep it going, but people don't care about that at the time. They just look about this subset. Hey, if you look at that over 16 games, the guy's going to be running back 10 or running back 6, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, Chigakonkwo, that is one that I thought about where, his yards per route run was through the roof. And, well, if he expands his role. So efficiency, production, likability, the higher baseline coming in, pre-draft bias, but then also just changing situation. Like, maybe a veteran leaves. Maybe you got a new coach, more offensive-minded coach. Like, the perfect example there is think about Roma Dunze this past year.
Mm-hmm.
If he didn't have that high baseline coming in, if he didn't have a new situation with Keenan Allen leaving, the new coach, Ben Johnson, an offensive mind coming in, his value would have plummeted compared to where it is. He pretty much stayed flat. There was very minimal difference between where he was value-wise last year this time versus now, and we have a year of production or lack thereof, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the factors that we talked about, whether it's a value spike or insulating value. Last week on Trending Fantasy, we really talked about RJ Harvey, Jaxson Dart, Kyle Williams, Woody Marks, Brashard Smith, when we were discussing our favorite values throughout the early rookie drafts, and we looked at first, second, and third round. Now, there's going to be some overlap here. So I know we did mention some of these guys, but I wanted to break this up into a few different buckets. And you know me, my buckets. First of all, Mitch, between now and September, so before the season even kicks off, which rookies rise in value between now and then?
I think the biggest one, so they have to have the hype build up, and you could talk about the second, third round guys. But the ones we're going to see, Tet McMillan, I think is going to continue to move up, and not just Dynasty draft boards. Like as soon as the underdog people start doing their drafts, all the best ball podcasts come out, he is going to look extremely good on spreadsheets because the rest of the wide receiver room is just terrible. Like it's really not good. I know there's a lot of Jalen Coker fans, but there's a vast difference between Tet McMillan and Jalen Coker. And he's someone to where I think from just right now through even, I would say, early August, before they even start really getting hit in training camps, I would bet you right now he's wide receiver 16. I would be pretty confident to say he's going to be a top 12 Dynasty wide receiver by August, because I think that drumbeat is going to keep gaining.
Yeah, right now, and I just use KTC as a frame of reference. He's wide receiver 16. I do think that could elevate itself. Like you said, you see the best ball bros coming out with all their projections, and he's gonna look decent from a projection standpoint. But again, it goes back to a lot of people had him in the pre-draft process as the wide receiver 1. It goes back to the higher baseline. Yes, there are some people that think he's going to take some time to really grow, if he does, into that true wide receiver 1. But this happens all the time. So I wanted to pose the first part to you before any of these guys take a step on the field, because we always have these value swings, and there's different windows and there's opportunities to either move on or acquire. And it's how do we capitalize, and it's like, do you sell low and risk a value rebound if the guy does drop in value? And there's going to be fluctuations. Like it's not just here's the starting point, here's the ending point, and that's it. There's ups and downs, ebbs and flows, spikes and valleys, whatever way you want to look at it. So with a player like Tet McMillan, I think that's something that you can really look at there, an opportunity and the higher baseline. And are we willing to ride that into the season? And if let's say you got stuck with him, let's say you drafted him and you truly don't believe he flourishes for fantasy purposes, I align with Mitch here. I think there is that opportunity. If you do want to move him, his value is not going to drop between now and the start of the season. Who else do you got that falls into this bucket?
I was going to talk about RJ Harvey, but I'm not going to do it again. Everyone knows how much I love RJ Harvey. Anyone in the DD Fantasy Discord knows how much everybody loves RJ Harvey. So I really like him. I do think he's going to gain in value. I think the best ball guys are going to start diving into him and boost up that value a little bit. But the next person I want to talk about is Luther Burden. And it's a lot. Ray kind of got me going during the NFL draft talking about it. He was saying, DJ Moore wasn't very good last year. And I'm like, was he not very good? So I went and looked at it, and Ray was right. DJ Moore wasn't great last year. And so if you look at this and just don't have any preconceived notions, Ben Johnson goes in there, and then we see, hey, with his second round pick, he immediately drafts Luther Burden when we know Ben Johnson has come out and said before, like, how important that slot role is in this offense. Like, he thinks it's extremely important. Going back 3 years, even before Amon-Ra took off, he was like, hey, this is kind of what we're looking for. You got to be able to block, you got to do these things. And you look at Luther Burden, he kind of fits the mold perfectly. And so he's coming in right now. I think you got it down as wide receiver 32.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how much he goes up before September. I do think once the games are played, though, he's going to be on the field and he is going to see a lot of snaps. And the one funny thing about this Bears offense that I love, everybody's getting the underneath targets, whether it's the running back,
Loveland,
whether it's Burden, whether it's, it could be Loveland or it's DJ Moore. Oh no, it's a Dunze. They're all getting underneath targets is how it seems. But I do think that Drumwell's going to kind of go for Luther Burden to where I do think his value is just going to continue to build.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Burden because it is that crowded situation. It is the lots of mouths to feed narrative, but we talked about this on this week's episode of Dynasty Theory when we did the 3-round mock draft. There is the narrative that these coaches, when they take over a team and they bring their guys in, how much weight does that carry? Because it's already started. Hey, this is a wake-up call for DJ Moore, for Roma Dunze. You got a new coach coming in that's brought in his guys that he wants. So wide receiver 32, Luther Burden, certainly attainable in rookie drafts right now. I think he went off the board, 204, 205, somewhere around there in the mock draft we did. And even in real rookie drafts, he is going a little bit later. So I don't know. Maybe we don't see necessarily a rise in the wide receiver rankings, but I think maybe we could see more of a market that allows him to be moved at that price because of maybe coach speak, rookie training camp.
I just think they're going to be so talked about.
Yep.
How many times are we going to see the Packers brought up on whatever NFL ESPN show? The Chicago Bears, though, they're going to be one of the most talked about teams.
It's exciting.
It is. And so I just think that's just one of those other reasons to where people are going to be bringing up his name more and more.
Yeah, it certainly is exciting, and there's going to be a lot of conversations, like you said. And if this team is in the media, if they're being talked about, whether it's national media or fantasy football circles, that does drive a market. So I wanted to get away from the value changes between now and September. Which rookies? Now, this is an interesting one.
This one's
I was thinking about this because, like I said, there's always these ebbs and flows. Which rookies might have a dip in value for a majority of the season, but then at the end of the season, they recoup value or maybe even surpass their current value. I think, obviously, hopefully nobody is exactly like this, but Ricky Pearsall is an example.
Yeah. Hopefully no one's exactly like Ricky Pearsall.
But obviously, dude gets shot, comes back like a warrior, and is not productive. And again, I'm not saying, oh my God, he wasn't productive.
How dare he, John?
I stubbed my toe and I'm like, leave me alone. I can't go on. But this dude comes back, not productive. The value kind of dipped, but then the last couple weeks of the season dominated the target market share, just dominated. And he recouped that value. So kind of that narrative. Who do you got?
Jaxson Dart. I love Jaxson Dart. I have extremely high rostership of him right now, but the problem is he's quarterback 3. And more than likely, he's going to stay quarterback 3. Russ is going to start for a while, more than likely. In my opinion, he'll get benched at some point. Everyone loves the Jameis Winston show for fantasy. No NFL coaching staff really seems to love the the Jameis Winston show. So I think we'll see Jaxson Dart at some point, but I really highly doubt we're going to see it before week 11, week 12, week 13. I don't see it happening. And I think the easiest way for this Giants coaching staff to save their jobs is, hey, they try to win through the first 11 weeks. They don't. They're like, oh, hey, we could throw Jaxson Dart. Then if he shows just a little bit, they're like, look, we're going to build around him. And for future years to come, we could be the kings of this division. It's just not going to happen this year.
Yeah, with Jaxson Dart, I mean, I love the price of Jaxson Dart right now, and he's quarterback 23, gets the first round draft capital. I said it on the mock draft show. He's tied to Malik Neighbors, obviously, and he's discounted. I think a lot of it is just because of the strength of the running back class, so he drops a little bit further in rookie drafts, but he's discounted because, hey, we might not get that production right away, but does it matter? Right. Does it matter if we get it right away?
Yeah.
I don't know that it does. That year one outlook, first half of year one outlook is so important when it comes to Dynasty fantasy football. It's such a long-term game. And I always say the short-term results just play such a role and have such a huge impact. So like you said, Michael Penix, he was going early to middle of the second round in 12-team Superflex rookie drafts. Jordan Love.
Yeah, yes, Jordan Love's the one you could kind of pick out. Yeah.
That he sat for a while, but he was sitting behind a Hall of Famer. Well, Russell Wilson could be, he's probably a Hall of Famer, right?
Close. Something.
But not at this point, right? But like there are other ways you could go, and you kind of take these players that they have a seemingly better situation. They have a better opportunity at hand immediately. But Jaxson Dart, he's got the insulated value. And I know people could say, well, if I want to buy Jaxson Dart, I'll do it when his price drops a little bit in the middle of the season. The expectation is there. And how often, Mitch, do you actually see it work where I'll buy this guy later?
Yeah. Doesn't work.
No, either you draft him now, or the person that drafted him is going to value him higher than you do. And if they drop far enough, well, they sucked and nobody wants them anymore.
Yep.
So it's like, okay. So you got Jaxson Dart. Who else do you got?
So you were just saying, how often does it work to where you'll say you buy these guys later? Usually 3 years ago, that worked with tight ends. That's just what you could do. You could not draft a tight end year one. You could buy him going into year two, and he was always cheaper. And so I'm bringing up Terrance Ferguson for that reason, because, you guys, I really liked him during the draft show. You guys kind of talked me back, and I'm agreeing. Higbee is in front of him. I don't think Parkinson's, anything really to worry about there. But sorry, Parkinson. But with Ferguson, he is. How do I want to explain it with this one? He's talented enough to show something by the end of the season, but I don't think he's going to have that great of a chance to show it early. So you're kind of waiting on a Higbee injury or something to happen to just boost it up. I do think we'll see it this year, but when I was saying, hey, I like him before Mason Taylor, that was way off base. He's more of like that mid third rounder later guy that I think is going to be worth a second rounder going into next year's draft.
I think best case scenario for, I say best case scenario for the I'll buy him later at a discount crowd is if we don't really see much in year one, Higbee is still involved, and Higbee's still in that roster going into 2026. And again, I'm not making the comparison, but it kind of sounds like Trey McBride and Zach Ertz. Again, I'm not saying Terrance Ferguson.
Right. I like it. I'm glad you're finally on that boat with me.
Not saying Terrance Ferguson is
big Terrance Ferguson fan.
Is Trey McBride. It's such a unique situation where Trey McBride had horrible peripheral metrics and then just completely shot out of a cannon, but he had a tremendous collegiate profile. This next group kind of could have been in the same category. Disclaimer, curse word coming here. So turn the volume down if you have children in the car or you're listening on the podcast feed. The way I prompted this to Mitch, who doesn't do shit all year, but then either maintains value or skyrockets during next offseason, because of a changing situation. So this is the Roma Dunze comparison. But again, it could kind of be compared. Like you could have lumped Terrance Ferguson in here. You could have lumped Jaxson Dart in here. But give me your list.
This is hard. So I'm gonna just name the 5, then we'll kind of go through them. But I have Will Howard, Shedeur Sanders, Jordan James, Devin Neal, Brashard Smith on there. And they're all guys to where you could be like, there's hope they could start this year. If the starter in front of them goes down, then of course they're going to get hype. But my thing is with Jordan James, Devin Neal, Brashard Smith, they kind of fit in the role that every running back on a 32 NFL roster has this chance. If the lead guy goes down, then all of a sudden someone's going to get boosted up. You kind of hope that happens with Jordan James because we know what's going to happen with the 49ers. Devin Neal, Kamara goes down, we know he's going to get a lot of work. But it's the exact same for everybody else in the league. I mean, we can name the Bears backup right now, Rashad Johnson. If Swift goes down, all of a sudden he's going up. So we're just talking about the rookies now, but really from those 3, there's so many more that can do it. But tell me, I wanted to bring up Will Howard because you are the Pittsburgh fan. As we could see with the helmets behind, you are like the biggest Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I have drafted an irresponsible amount of Will Howard this year. Is Aaron Rodgers actually going to join the Pittsburgh Steelers, or are my Will Howard shares going to look great because he's going to have to start like week 10 this year?
So everything I see is saying there is optimism and things are moving in the right direction involving Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no inside scoop or it's just the blurbs that are out there. I said during the draft show, I think I was like, the Steelers, they didn't take a quarterback early. Well, that means Rodgers is going to be signing in Pittsburgh. Well, it still hasn't happened. And maybe by the time, because we record these on Monday, they're released on Thursday, maybe in that stretch in between this, Aaron Rodgers will be a Pittsburgh Steeler. But Will Howard, Riley Leonard, those are the 2 quarterbacks for me that I'm looking at them, and there's that narrative there.
There is.
Yes, there's Shedeur Sanders, obviously, but he's going earlier. And strictly looking at quarterbacks like Quinn Ewers, you could say, okay, maybe he would get an opportunity, but he needs something to happen to Zach Wilson too. Dylan Gabriel, that whole situation is just a mess. Could he get a chance? Yeah. But Riley Leonard, you have 2 quarterbacks ahead of him who get dinged up, who aren't that great in Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. And then Will Howard, you can certainly tell yourself that story. He's an upside play. And when we're looking at it from this perspective of they don't do anything all year, but then could gain value. And like I said, either maintains value or skyrockets, because maintaining value for the higher end guys, I think that's more attainable. But Will Howard, let's say Aaron Rodgers does not join the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, they're probably going to bring somebody else in because Khan likes to start camp with 4 quarterbacks on the roster. But Will Howard, he gives you that big school pedigree. He brings you the national championship. He brings you athleticism. He could get an opportunity at some point. So if he goes in, doesn't do anything all year, but then Mason Rudolph just isn't productive or he goes down, you get that spike in value.
You do.
Especially if they don't address it next year. So next offseason, Will Howard, quarterback 35, certainly could be elevated. So I like that shout.
Well, even if not, so one thing with these quarterbacks is Will Howard's probably going to be the backup in Pittsburgh for the next 4 years, more than likely. And so there's no harm in taking a quarterback like that in the 4th round when right now only one guy's ahead of him who's not good at football. And he might end up getting Aaron Rodgers, so you have to kick this count down the road a little bit. But he was one of those guys that I wanted to bring up that I do have way too much rostership of at this point. But it's because in the 4th round, I really don't love a lot of these guys to begin with.
Yeah, and if we're talking about upside, and this is one we said maybe 6-month look ahead, 12-month look ahead. Maybe it's a little bit longer for Will Howard. You can stash him on your taxi if you have taxi squads.
Yep.
If you have deeper benches, no harm, no foul in stashing him. But we saw what Mason Rudolph was going for when he filled in as the Steelers' backup. He was getting moved for late firsts in some spots. That was happening.
I mean, you brought it up though. Howard has wheels, he could run a little bit. And so having that, him going in, people are going to be willing to give you a late second if it's going into the playoffs. Like they lost their starter. Will Howard's there. It's only for 3 games. They're going to give you a lot more than a fourth. I guarantee that.
You said Brashard Smith. I think he's one, if we don't see anything in year 1, he's probably waiver wire fodder.
I'm pretty sure that the Chiefs drafted another 7th round running back last year, and I literally can't remember his name. So,
Steele?
Or he might have been a
Steele?
UDFA or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's how quick we forget these guys.
But I really like the Jordan James and Devin Neal call-outs because both have aging veterans on their roster ahead of them. Devin Neal with Alvin Kamara. Not much else there. We talked about Kendre Miller a little bit during the draft show. Jordan James, he fits that scheme perfectly with the outside zone in San Francisco. I certainly think he's good enough to take over that number 2 spot from Isaac Rendo. And even if he's not, something's in the water. San Fran running backs go down.
You're right. Here's the one thing, though, is both these backs can go out and rush for 1,000 yards this year and get immediately replaced next offseason. So it's like 100% they could skyrocket, but I don't know if it could happen during next offseason just because we've seen it happen so many times at this point to where they're just not going to have value until that team doesn't draft a running back over them.
Well, it kind of
Tyrone Tracy.
I was just looking at Tyrone Tracy, Bucky Irving, but Bucky Irving took over that.
Oh, yeah.
backfield.
No, Irving's a stud. Yep.
Yeah, so these are situations, even Tyrone Tracy, he took over that backfield from Devin Singletary. These are situations that it's like, hey, they didn't do anything.
Yep.
But now something has happened ahead of them. Things open up. We're going to see that value bump. So I think it's an interesting topic because, again, like I said to start the show, we have these players and we're looking at the way they're ranked in our rookie drafts and their current values. But sometimes we put these blinders on and we don't think 6 months out, 12 months out, 2 years out. And it's certainly difficult because of how quickly the dynasty game is evolving. You have to look a little bit more short-sighted because that's how a lot of people do it. It gets a little more redraft centric. Now, yes, we are spewing hope right now, but last year, the top 14 players, 13 of them rose in value or lost minimal value when you look at the 101 through the 202. After that, so we're talking about early second to end of the third, Benson, Keon Coleman, Pearsall, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Leggett, Roman Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Polk, Corum, Sinnott, Burton, Ray Davis, Corley, Vidal, Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving, Luke McCaffrey, Spencer Rattler, Tracy, Jatavion Sanders, Javon Baker. That was our top 36. 2 of those guys gained value over the course of a year. Late round risers, Jalen McMillan, Isaac Guerrero. Okay. 23 rookies. We saw the high value guys do a pretty decent job outside of Bryce Young, who kind of dropped, but now he's rebounding a little bit. JSN dropped initially, but now he's back. Zach Charbonnet, Quentin Johnston, excuse me, they dropped. Kendre Miller, Josh Downs, Tajay Spears, Jaden Reed, Roshan Johnson, Mayer, Mingo, Mims, Laporta, Rice, Chase Brown, Hooker, Tank Bigsby, Hyatt, Izzy, Tillman, Dell, Zach Evans, Schoonmaker, Deuce Vaughn, Musgrave, Michael Wilson, Boutte. Like, it gets ugly.
It gets really bad. We did like a 3-year look back at one of these points, and we try to draft something after like the 110. We're like, well, all these players are awful. And that was using all 4 rounds to try to make 1 round. So as much as we love these players, we love hyping them up. after that mid-second round point, we're going to have one or two that hit, and all the rest are just going to be kind of roster fodder.
But I think one of the big key takeaways before we wrap this up, maybe one or two of them hit that are going later, but there are potential windows throughout.
Yes, without a doubt there are.
That's the big thing. How do we capitalize? So taking that outlook, again, it's not point A to point B, and it's a trajectory one way or the other, and that's it. There are ups and downs. How can we take advantage? And when we're looking at these guys, if they gain value, if they lose value, what's the opportunity cost we're passing on to make these selections? If we're talking about Jordan James at the end of the 4th round, what are you really passing up on?
Yep.
Whereas you look at Tet McMillan and you're like, I took him 5th overall. He didn't lose value in a year, but 6 guys right after him all gain value. It's not really a win in my book. So, Mitch, anything else here before we wrap this up on this week's episode of Trending?
I think we covered it, but if you guys were kind of slowly wrapping down the rookie hype and all that talk, if you guys want us to hit on something on this show, let us know in the comments. We'll definitely do a show on it.
Yeah, this is a show that's based off of, I always say it, topics that are being discussed on X, Reddit, the DD Fantasy Football Discord community, whatever the case may be. Drop it in the comments. Let us know. We are more than happy to talk about it. For Mitch Sorensen, I'm John Bauer. Hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.